Next up, we have the parathyroid gland. And this is actually two pairs of organs that sit on the backside of our thyroid gland. So here's a different perspective of the full thyroid gland, kind of creating that butterfly shape just underneath our thyroid cartilage. If we flip that around, we would see these two pairs of the almond-shaped structures. These are our parathyroid glands. So they're really tiny. They're often hard to find on a cadaver, but don't let that deceive you. They actually have a very important function in the body, and that function is to regulate our calcium. So calcium is actually really cool. It's the only mineral in the body with its own kind of separate system of regulation, and that is all done by our parathyroid gland. So there are specific cells in the parathyroid that are going to secrete a hormone called the parathyroid hormone. Pretty straightforward. What gland are we talking about? And take that, and that's the name of this hormone. This parathyroid hormone, or sometimes it's abbreviated to PTH, this is going to increase calcium levels in the blood. So for example, if your diet is calcium deficient and you're not getting enough, the cells of the parathyroid gland are going to secrete more of this hormone to increase calcium levels in the blood. So oftentimes we're going to take away calcium from our bones to make sure it gets sent to more vital areas of the body. Things like nerve conduction require calcium. So while bones are super important, sometimes they're not the most important thing, and we have to take away calcium. So all of that will happen in a calcium deficient state, leading to things like osteoporosis or osteopenia. On the flip side, if we have a diet that is rich in calcium, the secretion of this parathyroid hormone will decrease, calcitonin secretion will increase, and then we'll lay down more calcium, we'll deposit more calcium, often in the bones. So those two hormones act in opposition to one another to regulate our calcium system. But enough about hormones, let's talk about structures. So this view is very important. I might ask parathyroid gland from a PowerPoint question or from a microscope question. The first thing we want to look at is the presence of these large white cells here. We have seen this tissue before. This is, in fact, adipose tissue. So if we click here, it's just going to take us to a different cluster. So all scattered throughout the parathyroid, we typically have clusters of adipose tissue. Each of these is an adipocyte, an adipose cell. So look for those on your slide. If you look and the first thing you see is bits of white mixed in with other cells, that's a really good clue that we're talking about the parathyroid gland. And that's pretty much all you need to know to identify this. Let's zoom in though and take a look at some of these other cells. So in terms of the glandular elements, everything that is not adipose tissue, we have chief cells. And these are the main makeup of the cells in our parathyroid gland. These chief cells are producing that parathyroid hormone. So they're the most active cells in the parathyroid gland. You can see here they are darker stained. So oftentimes they have really dark purple nuclei. That's something you can look out for on your slide too. So once you find your adipose tissue, look closely. If you have tons and tons of speckles of these dark stained cells, that's how you know you're dealing with chief cells. We have another type here called oxophilic cells, and they look a little different. So typically they're lighter stained. They're a little further spaced apart because the cells are slightly larger. They have larger cytoplasm. We don't actually know what these cells do though. So don't worry about function for oxophilic cells. That is kind of an ongoing area of research. So to summarize, the most important thing you need to know for parathyroid gland is be able to look at a slide like this. If you see adipose tissue, then we're dealing with parathyroid gland. And that's as deep as I will take it on lab exam 2.